Hi there, I'm Lisa Taylor. Thank you for joining me. Let me know where you're watching from. So, I am a student of Christian Science, divine science, the law of God. And I know a lot of you who watch me are either familiar with it or students yourselves of this law. And when we are in a dark place, and I know we all experience that at times, there's this great desire in us to reach out to God, to reach out to something larger than, if you don't use the term God, just think of, you reach out to your highest understanding. Reach out to that place that is larger than you, that is where everything is in control and all is governed rightly. When things are going well, we're not as apt to be in that humble place. The temptation is to kind of slide into the place of the false ego, thinking it's got it all covered. It's all good. I got this going on, right? Don't be distracted. Don't be distracted by that false ego's sense of, I got this. Stay when things are good. That's when, and I know gratitude practice does this, that's when we acknowledge, that's when we need to keep in the habit of acknowledging that the source of good is always the divine. The source of good is never what we're seeing the material. If we're sliding into the material senses looking for evidence, Mrs. Eddy has this great quote. She says, happiness is never the sport of circumstance. And that's from Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy, which is really her seminal work and the textbook of these divine laws. Happiness is never the sport of circumstance. Do we look at circumstances when things are going well and go, yeah, that's good? Or are we translating those things into thoughts and recognizing there are spiritual ideas at work here? The good is always sourced in God. Now, this gets a bit tricky when I'm going to do kind of a comparison here of different quotes in Science and Health, where Mrs. Eddy talks about holding thought steadfastly to the enduring, the good, and the true. She talks about sickness is formed by the human mind, not by matter, nor by the divine mind. Well, that makes it sound like, oh, if I don't control my human thinking, then I'm going to be sick. And there's a temptation to start feeling personally responsible when we're sick. How many of you have been tempted to think that? I know I have. I've slid into that place. Well, just listen to a couple of other quotes and unpack this with me for a second. She talks about sickness as well as sin is an error that Christ's truth alone can destroy. Sickness as well as sin is an error that Christ's truth alone can destroy. So is it our personal responsibility to hold thought steadfastly? Well, let's look at that. It's our responsibility to respond to God's ability. Yes, it is our responsibility. But what is the ability here? It's the ability of being humble and allowing the Christ to shift consciousness. She also talks about this science is the effect of this science is to stir the human mind to a change of base on which it may yield to the harmony of the divine mind. So what's happening there? It's the Christ truth. If you go back to that other quote, sickness as well as sin is an error that Christ truth alone can destroy. It's the Christ that's holding our thought steadfastly. It's the Christ, it's the effect of the Christ, the divine idea, constantly communicating to the human consciousness and lifting it to the highest place, constantly going from material sense to spiritual sense. The material sense testimony is only going to tell you a lie. Spiritual sense is going to tell you the truth. It's going to tell you that God is in control and that there is only good. There's nothing else going on here. So she also says it breaks the dream of disease to understand that sickness is formed by the human mind, not the divine mind. So if we know that the human mind can be shifted, it's that place where it seems to be a relative sense of things, where there's a mixture. That's the seeming reality. The reality is there's no mixture, there's only good. But if it appears to be, we know that that appearance can be shifted to the reality by the Christ. It's the Christ that does this. She also says, we cannot serve two masters, nor perceive divine science with the material senses. The scientific government of the body must be attained through the divine mind. The scientific government of the body must be attained through the divine mind. So if the false ego is swooping in and trying to lure us into thinking that somehow through human will, through, effort on our personal part, that we're going to control this and we're going to overcome, we're being duped. So be alert to that. She talks about we must learn how mankind govern the body, whether through faith and hygiene, in drugs, or in willpower. The willpower thing comes in where I'm going to control my thinking. I'm going to, hold thought steadfastly. Well, if we're doing it through the human will, that's not divine science. That's human will. She has lots of things to say about human will. Or govern it from the higher understanding that the divine mind makes perfect, acts upon the so-called human mind through truth, and that's a small t, interestingly, leads the human mind to relinquish all error, to find the divine mind to be the only mind and the healer of sin, disease, and death. So she's really clear about that place in us that would be tempted into grabbing hold of control, that false ego would want to grab. It's like, I got this. I got this. I don't need to lean on God here. I got this. I got that. I've got an iron will of discipline that I'm going to keep it. That's positive thinking. This is not positive thinking. Yes, good thoughts are an impervious armor. Clad therewith, you are completely shielded from the attacks of error of every sort. And not only yourselves are safe, but all whom your thoughts rest upon are thereby benefited. Quote from Mrs. Eddy. But how are we doing that? It's through the Christ. It's through yielding. It's through allowing. It's through recognizing I can of mine own self do nothing. There's a Bible passage that gives us, and I have all these notes around me. Can I actually find the Bible passage I was going to reference? And the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. Keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. So through Christ consciousness, through truth consciousness, the divine idea of God, that's how we're going to find healing. That's how we're going to stay in alignment, at one-ment with the divine, and not get distracted by the illusion of material sense, the illusion of mortal mind, a mind separate from God, which is impossible if there's only one mind. There's only one mind. There's only one true consciousness. And we are at one with that every moment of every day. I didn't mean to go on, but this is such good stuff. Let me know where you're watching from. Share this out. If you think anybody could be benefited by this, that these ideas might resonate with somebody that you know, share it out. And this actually came out of today's Morning Metaphys, because I love showing up for this group of people and letting God speak through me. It is really my calling. And I am truly honored to be, again, I'm getting chills and I'm getting teary. So I'm truly honored to be able to speak, because I just love God. So if you know anyone who might be interested in trying it, go to thischoicematters.us, sign up for a free trial, and see if you like Morning Metaphys. And we gather every weekday morning at 7:30 Pacific time. So there are people from all over the world. So for some people it's afternoon, so it's not really Morning Metaphys for them, it's afternoon Metaphys. But you know what, if it appeals to you, great. If you don't do it through this group, I pray that you have a spiritual practice and that you feel uplifted by it and consistently are in the work of it, in the joy of it. It's not really work. It's like, it makes life so much better. It really does. So anyway, you know me. I love this stuff, and I love that you guys are watching. So thank you for being here, and I appreciate it. Oh, and I have a This Choice Matters Google page now. So you can go like write reviews and stuff. So look up This Choice Matters on Google and you can write a review if you like the stuff. Anyway, lots of love. See you next time. Thanks for being here.